you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Good evening and welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to be here once again talking about small business, my favorite topic. And, hope everybody's doing well out there and you had a great week. Many of you know we had our most recent Power Breakfast, and if you missed it, you really missed out. Tonight we're really going to have a special guest who's, appreciate him coming on and really going to share a perspective that not many people have. A lot of people, you talk about business, you want to grow. A lot of times, contracting is one way that you can grow. And, contracting has its own pitfalls and challenges and things that you have to learn and nuances. And then if you're dealing with the government, that's even that much more complex. But we've got someone tonight who can really give us some insights, especially looking at municipal governments, because, they're spending millions of dollars. They would prefer to spend it with people in their area. But making the match to you finding the right opportunity and then choosing you can be a lot harder than you would expect. But at the end of the day, if you have the right insights, then it's a lot easier to do that. So my special guest today does, and look forward to learning things alongside with you. So our guest is Mayor Wayne Smith. He's president, CEO of his consulting company, but also he's the former mayor of Irvington, New Jersey. So he definitely is very familiar with municipalities. And we're going to talk about doing business with urban governments and municipalities. So welcome, Mayor Smith. Glad that you could join us tonight.
Thank you, Andrew. I just want to thank you for the last 10 years supercharging my day with the Power Breakfast and the conference. I remember going at the Newark Club when you first started, and was a breakfast, and now has morphed into a really super day conference. So certainly was there to celebrate your 10th, and I want to commend you for the outstanding work that you're doing to lift up small business in all the capacities that you do. And so, I've spent some time in local government, and I really want to talk about just a little bit how you do business with local government, but also the urban landscape. I think that we have, as business people, oftentimes people ignore urban neighborhoods because they sometimes think the customer base isn't there if you're in retail or if you're selling a product. But I think that with the growth of urban cities, it creates a dynamic opportunity for business people of all backgrounds and all types of businesses to grow right in those urban neighborhoods. So I guess talk a little bit about some opportunities that you might be overlooking in municipal government. So most of the time, sometimes people, go ahead.
Okay. No, no. I mean, I think this was excellent. But before we dig in too deep, people need to know who you are.
Okay, so
So, talk a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are, and then we'll start digging into some of the Q&A from there. How's that?
That sounds great. So, obviously, an urban dweller, was born and raised in the city of Newark, a product of its public schools, went on to Bloomfield College. And my first foray at business was in the insurance industry, which I was engaged up until the pandemic for almost all of my business career. And I worked for a little small life insurance company, and it really kind of tells my story about what I think exists in urban neighborhoods. So I went to work for a small insurance company named Progressive Life Insurance Company, and they were selling life insurance to neighborhoods and urban neighborhoods where the bigger firms were not interested in going into, and they had an interesting marketing concept. It was the debit. And the debit was you actually sold insurance, you went to people's homes, you also collected the premium, and your bonuses and commissions were based on you writing new business and also collecting the premium. And so after I did it very well and did well, but I also wanted to grow in the industry. So I left Progressive and went to work for an African-American entrepreneur named John Watts, who taught me the bigger parts of the insurance industry. So, and one of the lessons learned in that was that I began to sell group life and health insurance. And right in our neighborhoods, you have organizations that are looking for these services even today. And one of my bigger clients was the Leaguers, where I had placed a group life and health insurance program there. And at the time, the current lieutenant governor was the executive director of the Leaguers, still the premier Head Start agency. And agencies like Head Start buy everything from employee benefits to paper and pencils. And so when you look at targets, there are significant nonprofit organizations that exist in neighborhoods that we often overlook. And so in my prospecting, I end up having an opportunity to place the group benefits there at the Leaguers. And it was a very significant contract in my early 20s. And that helped me grow my firm. I ended up doing the same thing for the East Orange Child Development Corporation, which was the Head Start agency for the city of East Orange. And the opportunities like that exist around the country, where sometimes we just kind of overlook these organizations and people capitalize on them, and sometimes we don't. So, after working in the insurance industry for a while, I end up having clients who were in diverse industries. And so a couple of my associates were engaged in entertainment and sports, and got opportunity to be involved in concert promotions and closed circuit television promotion, live boxing promotions. One of my close associates and long life best friend got involved as a boxing promoter. So we got engaged in those. So I became more of a serial entrepreneur. And then from the entertainment and sports enterprises, we got involved with PR and marketing. And then my journey led into politics as well. So I got actively engaged in the first campaign of the first African-American mayor of the township of Irvington in 1990, Mike Steele. And Mike got elected, and I became his confidential assistant, which was the equivalent to a chief of staff. And, I was, still doing, various businesses. I asked him, I said, listen, I still have some business enterprises, but as long as there's no conflict, I can still do them. He said, fine. So Mike served 4 years and did not get reelected. And when he didn't, I transitioned for about 3 months with the new mayor who came in. And then I went on to just focus entirely on my business. But a couple of years later, some of the town political leaders came to me and said, you did really well in the mayor's office. We got good name recognition. Why don't you run for the city council? Which I did and won. It was a special election, 2 years left on the term. I served that 2 years left of the unexpired term. And Pat McNally, who I replaced, became the county clerk. And so I run my re-election for a 4-year term as a council member at large in 1998. And my colleagues picked me also to be the council president. And then in 2002, I became mayor of the city. And so that's kind of my journey, and kept my firm going while I was mayor, but really got back engaged in 2014 when I left the mayor's office. And, I've been doing some very exciting projects. And so my firm does consulting around kind of really the nexus of my public service work and interests. And I consult people around some of those things. So around urban development, how to grow your business in an urban climate. And I actually more regional now. Most of my work is in New Jersey, but I've done some work in New York and Pennsylvania, and have some contacts around the country as well. So that's kind of what Wayne Smith and Associates does. We help firms grow in very unique ways, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those. And so some of my clients are one of the most significant projects we're working on is in the area of broadband. I have a client who is expanding broadband in New Jersey. The Biden administration has put out millions of dollars to increase the level of internet services for underserved communities. And many of us learned during the pandemic that the increased broadband usage is necessary. So I have a client who is expanding broadband. We're working with municipalities who have an interest in exploiting that opportunity. And I'm very impressed with the firm. I did some work with them in their technology firm while I was mayor. So I had firsthand evidence of their work, and they've expanded their firm and doing some incredible things. So I look forward to working with them. We're working on some incredible projects. So Positive Community Magazine is another community institution that I'm helping doing community and government relations for them, expanding their marketability in those markets as well. So to kind of in short, that's what we do. And looking forward to talking with you about opportunities and potential opportunities that I see entrepreneurs often miss in dealing with local government, but also the opportunities that exist in the evolving urban landscape.
Okay. No, that's great. So you've been holding out on me, Mayor Smith.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me you had an insurance business.
Oh yeah. Yep. So yeah, I did that for 20 years, and part of as you well know, which makes business a little smoother is you can live off some of that residual money coming in from work you've done in the past, and the reoccurring revenue from those commissions are nice to have.
Yes. So I've spent a good amount of time in the insurance industry. Mm-hmm. Initially working for the corporation, mm-hmm. But since I've had my own business, I've gotten my insurance licenses, and I've mm-hmm. done employee benefits and other stuff. Mm-hmm. Great place to learn.
Yep, absolutely, no doubt about it. And one of my experiences, Andrew, I'd like to share is that I had an opportunity while I was engaged as an independent broker to work for an African-American owned life insurance company in Harlem. Mm. And interesting thing, they recruit. So they had, it's funny how some of your ideas emerge. I was reading the Amsterdam News. I was still in my mid-20s. And they had a policy note, and it's big now. When you look at television, you see all these ads for seniors that no medical. Well, they were doing it in the 80s. Mm. And so I called them up. And they said, yeah, we'll give you a contract. So I began to do some business. They said, well, who's this guy in New Jersey doing this business? So they had a young man come and see me, and Mike Sanders still engaged in the business. It's interesting. He said, yeah, you're doing some good business. So they came up with a very interesting product. It was an exciting thing, and I made some money with it. So they had a product that was marketed through primarily African-American churches. Mm. And what they did was they did the data search, and it came out of Black Enterprise. But Black Enterprise did a study about how much money that left the Black church on Sunday morning that ended up in Midtown banks. that left Harlem.
Mm.
And so they did a very similar analysis about what African Americans were spending in insurance, and we weren't traditionally big legacy givers. So probably one of the most important institutions in any family's relationship is their place of worship, whether it's a masjid, a church, or whatever. But there was not a lot of planning to leave something to it. So we found that many people who had a faith tradition had, some insurance on their job. They may have had some independent insurance, but no forethought about leaving something to that very important institution as a way of a charitable gift. So they had a marketing program where they collected the premium in the church. They paid the church an administration fee for collecting it, and they made these very nice envelopes with all of the other things that the church was doing, in addition to the premium amount. And so they would give them a computer sheet with all the insurance policy number, and they would forward the money to us every Sunday that they paid. And it was a great marketing program. So one of my larger clients was the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which huge organization, very structured denomination. And I learned about how many people get elected bishops through that process. So I also had the company get a contract through Operation Push, Reverend Jesse Jackson. So in early '83, he had signed. He used to do these agreements called covenant agreements with major corporations. So the Uline Corporation, which at that time owned Smirnoff Vodka, they owned KFC. They signed one of these covenant agreements, and one of the items was insurance. So I went out to push at their convention, worked the Operation Push staff, put us in a position to get this contract, and we got it. And so Reverend Jackson came to New York City. This was on the eve of him announced. This is 1983. And so his staff, as we were signing this contract, big press conference at the Harlem State Office Building, his staff was creating a buzz because he was rated in '83 one of the most popular men in America and in the world by the Gallup poll. So they took that Gallup poll and they began to talk to people about, have you heard about the proposition that Reverend Jackson's going to run for president? So I was a young man at the time. I said, President of the United States? So look how far we come from those days to Barack Obama. And so those are some of the exciting experiences the insurance industry had given me.
Okay, excellent. So no, definitely that makes a lot of sense. A lot of lessons in what you just shared. So I think I want to pick some of those apart, and because I think a lot of valuable lessons and ideas can come from that for small business owners, because that was almost ingenious what they were doing, especially at the time.
Sure.
So, we'll talk about that. But before we do that, I run the show through the Small Business Pro University. So we're just going to take a little minute to sort of see what that is all about. And,
do a station break.
Yeah, a little station break. So we'll be back in a minute talking small business with Mayor Wayne Smith.
Do you own your business, or does it own you? Is your business growing, and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur by learning the secrets to creating a successful enterprise, to go from working in your business to working on your business. Take advantage of our strategic coaching program, or just simply choose the courses that you need. At www.sbprou.com, we will empower you to thrive and not just survive, and make more money in any business environment.
Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. I'm here with Mayor Wayne Smith, and our topic is focused on doing business with urban communities, but we're going to talk about more than that, because we're going to just talk about some business best practices, lessons, and strategies that work. So that story was tremendous about sort of how your insurance business grew and developed. And I always say that relationships are everything. And you had several key relationships that helped you move to the next level. Can you talk a little bit about them a little more and kind of how you developed those relationships?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned the Lieutenant Governor when she was executive director of the Leaguers, and I really didn't know Sheila, but what I do respect about her public posture, even at that time before she was in elective office, that she was willing to give a young man an opportunity, a young professional, an opportunity to at least try to advise the agency about their group health insurance company and policies. And so she sat down and talked with us, and we were able to work out something that was beneficial to them. And so that helped. And then once we got that contract, I was able, through some community involvement, to get the East Orange Child Development Corporation's contract as well. And so, networking is key. And so one of the things I encourage your audience to do is participate in the Power Breakfast, because I also make some great contacts there. At the last one, I'll be talking to a developing firm who's looking for several things that I might be able to assist them in accomplishing. And so you have to be out there just networking and meeting people with a purpose, not willy-nilly just to meet people, but you have to find people that may need your goods and services or have a niche that you can help them and kind of hear their story and see where you can possibly provide a good and service. So relationships, getting out, knowing people, obviously having had a public profile sometimes opens some doors to me because I've been in a position to help people as well. So although the relationships are so important, even now, most of my relationships come from just knowing people or having done something with them in some capacity or another in previous situations, and we come together and do some more business. So that's important. That's critically important. Relationships are the milk that has the baby grow, the baby firm grow. So if you got to always work at it, and sometimes you can't always look at everybody you meet at a transactional level, but if you find out what they're interested in, what their interests are, and there's something that you do that can assist them, then sometimes that leads to them making a referral to you because you were just thoughtful enough to think of them. And sometimes you just plant seeds places and they germinate many, many times over because you've been that kind of connector. And so one of the things that our firm does is we connect, because we have those kind of relationships. We connect people to various kinds of professionals. And, on occasion, I've brought some clients to the Power Breakfast, to different events that Andrew's had, and they're always helpful because they always are learning something, and it helps my relationship with them to get them educated in the areas that they may not have been educated in. So relationships are key.
Okay, excellent. So definitely. And, one of the keys to building relationships is communication. You don't have a relationship if you haven't talked to them for 5 years.
Right.
Or you barely have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to find ways to build your relationship. And it doesn't have to always include trying to sell something to them.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why I started the Power Breakfast, because you do business with people like, and trust. Mm-hmm. But you have to develop relationships with them, and you have to see them and spend time with them. So definitely appreciate you being there in the beginning, all 10 years and really being visible and supportive and bringing people and getting a lot out of it and helping other people get a lot out of it. So, definitely, that's key. So, we talked about know, like, and trust, but one of the other things that you talked about, and, greetings from Beverly Hills. Thanks, Sherry. So we always have great people tuning in and always appreciate your comments. Any questions you want to ask, we can also cover those. We're glad to do that because we focus this show for you to help make it valuable for people tuning in because you're taking time out of your busy schedule, out of your evening. We got Mayor Smith here captive, so we want to get as much out of the experience as possible. So cool. So one of the things that I talk about as key to success in the pandemic, but just in general, you should be doing all the time is, as a business owner, you got to be proactive, you got to be flexible, and you have to be creative. And, I really liked what you guys were doing with the African American church because it exemplified all those things. And it was really ingenious because so I think it might be worth just explaining that.
It was a very interesting concept. So again, we did some research about legacy giving. And obviously, one of our strongest community institutions is the Black church, the mosque, the masjid, all of our faith institutions. So we looked at what particularly African American people do in terms of their legacy giving. And so, we just were not doing it. So what we came up with was a very low cost way a person could leave some money to their church through life insurance, and so they could leave $5,000 or $10,000, and it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you pay a small life insurance premium and you make the church the owner of the policy and the beneficiary, then it becomes tax deductible as well. So what we did was we went to a lot of the leadership organizations and pitched this to the pastors, and some got it very quickly because some led kind of had taken over churches that were not African American when they took them over. So some denominations were had churches that they were getting legacy gifts from previous parishioners, and they said, we just has not been a thing that we've pushed. So we began to do that, and one of the things we did out of that experience, because we wanted to show the correlation between how you spend your money and whether or not companies like insurance companies will invest in your community. So at that time, as we were moving this program through the African Methodist Episcopal Church, they were building a mini conventions, little convention center for their church in I think it was Rochester. And we actually provided the mortgage money for that, and that made us that kind of took off. And so people left, and so the insurance company itself, I think I left there about, must have been 80, 84, 85, and the company stayed. They were founded in 1920 during segregation, and they grew. They owned a whole block on Lenox Avenue in Harlem, and they were a block away from Sylvia's. I ate breakfast at Sylvia's every morning, and they grew so big. In fact, that church insurance program was so successful that they had to reorganize the company, I guess, sometime in the 90s, early 90s, because they had some challenges around their reserves, and so Mutual of New York took over the company. And then the NBA Players Association bought the building. Billy Hunter was the executive director of the NBA Players Association. And right now in that same building, Marcus Samuelson has a restaurant. It was 310 Lenox Avenue. And we had at that company, it was an interesting experience for me because Dave Dinkins, who was the city clerk of New York at the time, was on the board. At that time, Harlem had 3 Black financial institutions: Freedom National Bank, Carver Savings, and United Mutual Life Insurance Company, which is the name of the company that I became assistant director of marketing when they brought me out of my brokerage contract and asked me to become part of their executive team. So, that was a very, very, very exciting period, and we grew that. We almost put the company out of business with our success.
Yeah. and I tell people all the time, you can go out of business just as quick by growing too fast.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it puts cash flow strain.
Right. And so, as you well know, with your economics hat on, you have to have a certain amount of reserves for the policyholders, and balancing that. So there's the State Department of Insurance. I was long gone by that time, but I followed the company because I had an interest in what they were doing. And Black Enterprise magazines used to do this annual list of the Black-owned life insurance companies across the country, and of course that list has dwindled along with the Black banks as well.
Yes. So I mean that's impressive. Just a couple things with the model. You started out being proactive. You did the research. You did the work. You figured out the right target market and what they needed. You were creative about how you solved their problem. First you helped them understand what their problem was, and then you helped them solve it in a really good way, in a creative way. And then you were flexible. I mean, you got them to do all the work, the premiums and everything. I'm like,
and we actually gave a donation to the church. Mm-hmm. For that, and they actually, a lot of the churches actually, they had part-time clerks or secretaries or whatever, and they actually increased their salaries just to do that part, and we were able to provide enough of a stipend, so there was some economic activity around what they were doing as well.
Right, it's about aligning your interest, making it a win-win proposition. After the first couple, you probably didn't even have to sell it.
Well, I'm telling you, the biggest thing that the African Methodist Episcopal Church, particularly after we did that mortgage on their mini center, I would go into the meetings, they would forget I wasn't a minister. They would say, Brother Smith, with the insurance company, they wrote that mortgage. So, and the bishops in the African Methodist Episcopal Church are tremendous leaders. They carry awesome weight within their congregation. So I learned a tremendous amount. One of the things I wanted to share, since we're talking about this issue of government, Andrew, is that a lot of times companies don't realize that some people shy away from public work because they have to bid or their requests for proposals, but there are opportunities under the bid threshold. So that, I think the threshold may be in like the $25,000 range now. But so if you're a small firm and a $10,000 contract or a $15,000 contract, or whatever the threshold is right now, because it fluctuates from time to time, you can establish a relationship with the purchasing agent of that particular municipality. So whatever you're selling, if they use it, and municipal, government uses everything from paper to toilet paper to pens to whatever you name, we use. I mean, governments use. So go in and introduce yourself to the purchasing agent. And oftentimes, if they don't know you exist, they can't buy from you. So, it's a simple thing to do, but it's always timing. Sometimes there's other ways that you can get into the loop of municipal procurement. Is there are emergencies that happen. So just for example, may not be a good one, but I'll use in Newark, they had huge Belleville, they had a huge water main break. There's certain parts of the city of Newark, there's no water right now. So they have to buy water and they're going door to door delivering water. So if you were in the water business, this is an emergency. They could procure without a bid or whatever the case may be. So things like that happen all the time. From if you're a service business and you fix things when things break, it's an emergency. You got to get it done. So, but if they don't know you exist and you do that work, you can't get that phone call to come in and do it. So make sure, if you have not considered that, make sure that the purchasing agent knows you exist and what you do. And the smaller the town, they all have budgets. So, some of these municipalities are Irvington is probably $100 million more corporation. Yeah, $100 million more corporation now. It was about 90, probably 95, 99 million when I was mayor. So I'm sure it's grown tremendously since then. So, but you take these towns that are smaller, they may be 30 million. They don't have the same mark. They may be 10 million because we have 5. So, and they purchase stuff. And there may be not a lot of vendors. The smaller towns may not have a lot of vendors beating at their door. Mm-hmm. So that might be an opportunity for you to go in and let them know what you do. So those are some of the secrets. Now the other part I just like to quickly share. I just think urban communities are at a crossroads right now, and I think the business community can play a major role in that. They can do good and do well. So the Newarks, the Irvington, the East Oranges, the Oranges of the world, the Harlems of the world. People call it gentrification, and to some respects that might be true. But there's still some land available out there. So people who are looking at real estate investments should look at that and track where the new development and maybe what many view as challenging neighborhoods are going, because there are going to be opportunities there, and there's going to be people coming into those areas that were not there, and they're going to need goods and services. So many of you follow the story with Queen Latifah's huge project in Newark. That's a nice project. She's partnering with another developer. They're putting some sizable housing in a part of Newark that hasn't seen that kind of traction in years. Well, where are all those people going to go to the store for goods and services? There are a few businesses there, but as Newark infills, and I'll give Mayor Baraka credit for this, he's encouraged and actually given, one of my clients got some land to develop housing. And so he's given opportunities to black and brown developers who may not have gotten those opportunities. And over the next few years, you'll see development sprouting out through the city, and other cities are doing that as well around the state and around the region. Track those developments, because they're going to be, if you're in retail and all these new people are coming in an area that does not have it, but maybe you could be envisioning getting in front of that and seeing if there's an opportunity for you to make some money from that new development, because where there are people, they're going to need goods and services. And so I just think that's the budgeting landscape, all the things that are happening around the region as we come out of the pandemic. Though we're facing some stitches of a recession, one of the interesting things about the economic numbers that have come out recently is that the jobs are still climbing. There's still some spending going on. Some of the corporations are beginning to be a little hesitant, but that does not mean for the small business guy, the consumer has not stopped spending yet. And the housing market will tighten up, I think, some soon, but people are still developing in there. The housing prices are going up. And one of the things for New Jersey, I think that's critical. And when I was mayor, we talked about this a lot, and I see it now actualizing more than ever, is that New Yorkers are running to New Jersey because a working class New Yorker cannot afford to live there. And so, Jersey City got the boom from the 9/11, when the back offices of most of the financial Wall Street firms kind of shifted to Jersey City, and then the residents followed. Now Jersey City is what I call the sixth borough of New York. Rents are equivalent to New York rents and so forth. The real estate landscape has changed a great deal. And now you see people, even more working class people. I sold some properties that we owned in Irvington and Newark, and New Yorkers bought them. And, where I was married, we were saying that that's the future of the region.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, excellent. So, yeah, I mean, and you mentioned doing good and doing well at the same time, which is always great. And in urban communities, there's more and more opportunities. One key thing I'm going to go back to is, these opportunities didn't come to you. You had to go out and be proactive and access them and do your research.
Right.
And, one thing that every town usually has is a development plan.
Absolutely.
And you can see what's going to happen in that town 5, 10, 30, like I know, New Jersey Transit, I think, has a 100-year plan of, where the train stations are. 20 years before the Montclair train was going to be there, they already knew it was going to be there. It was just a question of how and when.
Absolutely.
So, if you can get ahead of those things and, do the research and understand what's going to be happening, that gives you the ability to make some decisions and make some moves that could really work out well for you.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Every town has a master plan, and, the master plan lays out a roadmap, and sometimes they get there and sometimes they don't, but a large degree, some of that stuff happens. And if you can get in front of it, like you said, there are golden opportunities there. So you're absolutely right. So, pay attention to what's around you. Sometimes it's just even paying attention and then digging deeper to see what this means. Where, how can I take advantage of it? Because other people are, they look at every trend that's happening and they say, okay, the population is going to shift over here, and we've got to get in front of that to locate it. So it was an interesting story too. And so you get down to the census tract. So I had a Dollar General was interested in coming to our town, and we were the first community to get a Dollar General, and they were not doing urban stores at the time. And so when they came to our town, they had the VP of real estate when they came to Irvington and said, we'd like to put a store here. And they came early. We had a scheduled meeting like about 8 o'clock in the morning. They wanted to come very early. So I got there early just because I was an early riser. I got there early, and I saw two people that I was not familiar with riding around the neighborhood, just kind of circling the block. I kept seeing them circle the block. And they were there before the meeting doing an assessment of the neighborhood. And so this particular corridor, which was Chancellor Avenue, where they put the store, we had just had I had a developer that I met at the International Council on Shopping Centers. I went to a meeting of young developers, and he didn't know nothing about the community. And I recruited him to take a look. He bought a block. He put a Burnett barbecue, and the tenant he was trying to bring was Dollar General. And Dollar General then ended up, we did the deal because they knew nothing about Irvington. They had a misperception. But when they went around the corridors, it was a working class neighborhood where this location. He said, Mayor, we had a different read on the community. When I saw the residential neighborhood right here, this is our customer. I said, yeah, sure. And, whatever other issues, we were able to deal with those issues. We had other key staff out there, and they did the deal with the guy. And then they went on to do other stores, and not only in Irvington, but around the region. But we were kind of the model for their first urban store in New Jersey. So, it is tremendous opportunities. And sometimes looking at the particulars of a neighborhood, if you're going to locate a business there, is different from the perception you may have of a particular community. And when you go to visit and look, like they say, get under the tires, the hood of the car, and see what's going on there before you make a determination, because sometimes neighborhoods get excluded from economic activity, which are great communities, but you don't take a chance to look.
Okay. No, definitely. Very important. One thing I'll mention is, working with the government does not happen on your time schedule. So it's important to understand that. And they, in the insurance business, I'm pretty sure you've heard this, but you got to eat chicken while you're waiting to get the steak.
Yeah.
So, the steak is the contract, but you got to survive as you're going. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So very important. We got a comment from Maria Lewis Bethel here in Pittsburgh. I'm actually in Pittsburgh tonight.
Okay. That's home for you, right?
That is home.
Yeah.
So, okay, zoning specialist. All right. And, email us, checking websites to get notification. Okay. Yeah.
Great advice. Great advice.
Great advice. I might even add to that, because you could go to your city council meetings because nobody goes, and you could speak, you could get to meet everybody, and also every city has committees.
Yeah,
and I volunteered for the African American Heritage Day Parade Committee in Montclair. Met some great people, developed some great relationships. Spent a little bit of time on the Financial Management Committee of the town. And, those are ways that you could really know what's going on. And, as a citizen, they welcome participation. Talk a little bit about kind of how those things might work and, what you've done and what you'd recommend along those lines.
So I'm going to follow the young lady from Pittsburgh who recommended to people, if you want to know about some of the new initiatives in terms of real estate or businesses coming to your community, go to the zoning board meeting, the planning board in New Jersey. A lot of times they call them the Board of Adjustment, the zoning board meetings. But those are great places to go. And from a business perspective, when you go to the city council meetings, you'll see a lot of times they're voting on contracts. And so you may not be the recipient of the contract, but there's nothing to prevent you from approaching the firm who won a contract to see if you can do business with them as a local vendor. So you may sell something that they can utilize. And, some towns now are talking to vendors, within the bounds of the law about what they're doing as they win a contract in the city to stimulate more local activity from the things that they buy, the goods and services they buy, since they're going to be. And a lot of times these companies who win substantial contract awards, through competitive bidding or a request for a proposal, are not from your particular town or your area. And there's even debate about whether or not they should even, some firms come from out of state to sell you goods or services. And because New Jersey has this thing where you have to do with the lowest responsible bidder, so you may be able to leverage by knowing, oh, wow, this company got a contract here in Irvington, they're going to be doing, you may be able to go directly to them to see if they'll do some business with you.
Excellent. So no, great points. There's many ways to skin a cat, as they say, get opportunities. So you don't always have to go in the front door. And, once you get your first or second, it becomes so much easier. So that's cool. So I want to make sure we fully cover questions. So, we talked a little bit about this, but for those under the threshold projects, does the town have to get multiple quotes, or do they just use people they know all the time?
So no, so there's the best practice is that you usually get 3 quotes, and so you go to that. That's why you have to be in there to be able to give them a quote, so they know that you exist. So some purchasing agents will go directly to the people they know. But that's why they make them get 3 quotes, because there could be somebody out there that they don't know that can do the work and give you even a better price, or they're at least equivalent. And so you may want to give another person an opportunity. I'm not in that space where I'm directly involved with the contracts now, but there's got to be some supply chain issues for firms. So some firm may have stuff that they normally could get that they can, and a firm that you have not done business with may have the equipment or the product that you need. So I'm sure there's a lot of innovations going on that right now because of the supply chain issues that we're all confronted with. That being in front of them, letting you know you can provide the good or service becomes even more important.
Okay, now that's cool. And just, we also have to inject certain realities in that some towns, they do only use the people that they know.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
But you don't know, but also you have the ability to be the people that they know. So, so there's it's important to keep that in mind as well. And then Daryl Spence, who he talked a little bit about accessing development projects in a municipality. I know we talked a little bit about, but anything else you want to share on that topic?
Yeah, so I think though, one of the things that people should do, and here's a golden opportunity, I think that a lot of people are sleeping on around the state, and I don't know what activity. There were the School Development Corporation had land that they procured, and some schools did not get built, and that land is just sitting there. And I know that one of the issues is that land was procured by bonds, and so you can only use the land. One of the legal issues in confronting that, but somebody needs to do something special, legislation or something, can only be used for schools. But now you've got communities sitting there with vacant land that's not being taxed or not being utilized because nobody has really looked at that. That's a development opportunity for someone. And all you got to do is track the maps where schools that were proposed, that land was acquired by the state, purchased, and is just sitting there. And some of them have signs that say owned by the state of New Jersey. So to me, that's a wasted opportunity that land could be put into productive use. We've got a housing crisis, particularly around affordability. And hopefully, somebody can look at that and provide some incentives where you have at least some mixed use, some market, and some maybe affordable in it as well. But yeah, so some towns have development plans. You need to familiarize yourself with them, as suggested earlier. The zoning board, the planning board. Go pick up the master plan to see where people are going. And then there's nothing that prohibits a developer from acquiring land and talking to the cities about what they're proposing to do. As ownership puts you in the development game. So no matter how small a piece of property is, you can develop it yourself.
Okay, great insights. Always love talking to my guests, but one thing I always hate is an hour is just not enough time, even though
we're coming to an end.
So we're coming to an end, but it's always a pleasure. What I like to ask guests is, we covered a whole bunch of stuff today, and we want to leave people with like 3 things that they should take away and can focus on tomorrow to help move their business forward. So if you want to think about that for a sec and come back with that, that would be great, just to help people really focus on the most important stuff. And while you're thinking about that, one thing, I'm going to share some info about my most recent book, the Masterpreneur Playbook, and definitely something that has been helpful and can be helpful for many business owners. So we'll take a minute, check out a video, and then come back and we'll close out with the 3 key things to take away about take away from what we talked about tonight. Okay, so let's see. This is my most recent. It's not even available yet.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
The Masterpreneur Playbook.
Okay.
And really, we talked about is there's 5 steps to growing your business.
Yeah.
And, really laying out what those steps are, but not only what the steps are, how do you transition through them? And, each stage, you have certain things, there's a certain challenge that you have to overcome.
Right.
There's a certain goal you have to achieve.
Right.
There's a certain role you have as a business owner.
Right.
There's a certain structure that you need to have within your business to support that role and move into the next role. So each step, I lay out what those things are.
Wonderful.
Because each one of those has a key skill that you have to have as the business owner. You have to evolve and continually learn, or you're going to get stuck. You can only go as far as you're prepared to take. Okay, welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. Guest is Mayor Wayne Smith, and we're talking about, secrets to doing business with municipalities, especially urban municipalities. And so what would you say are the 3 key things that people should take away from what we talked about tonight?
Well, I think one is if you're in an urban environment, particularly if you're in one of the towns in New Jersey, check out registering if they're an urban enterprise zone, register your business with them. There's some tax incentives for any kind of business in an urban enterprise zone. It doesn't have to be a retail business, but register, because a lot of firms do not. But you got to have all your paperwork in order. Your taxes have to be done and all of that. The other thing I encourage people who have maybe more scalable projects to look at some of these funds that are out there, the opportunity zone funds. In addition to Mr. Spence with the EDA and all the programs that they have, if you've got more scalable projects, look at those as potential funding sources. And the last thing I do, and I encourage my clients to do it, is access Small Business as a Pro. Their website has tremendous resources for small businesses. The books are excellent. So those are things that provide you some technical competence that be at your fingertips.
Great. I especially like the third one. And appreciate that.
We shared it with our clients as well, Andrew. So you're a resource person for us as well.
And that was not a paid advertisement.
No, it was not. But it was an endorsement.
Yes. So thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us some valuable information. Definitely look forward to seeing you at the next Power Breakfast. And we put your LinkedIn info up, so anyone who wants to contact Mayor Smith, you can go through the LinkedIn, or just call his name and he may appear. You just never know. So, but thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time. Just hang on for a second, and let me just close things out. So, once again, a great session of talking with Mayor Smith this evening, and each week brings valuable insights and great information, and so definitely every week we look forward to bringing something new. Next week, our guest is going to be Gene Bahinsky, and he's going to be talking about, should I fire my accountant? So, my accounting friends might not be too happy about that topic, but it's something that needs to be discussed. So I'm definitely, looking forward to having that conversation. So definitely tune in next week, And if for some reason you missed an episode, you can go to our YouTube channel, Small Business Like a Pro, Small Business Pro University, and you can see the replays. So thanks again for tuning out. And, until next week, at the end of the day, the more that you know as a business owner, the faster your business will grow. And that's what it's all about.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.